We were sitting on the couch when it happened. A quiet Tuesday night, TV playing something neither of us were really watching. I looked over and saw her smiling at her phone, thumbs moving fast. She wasn't even pretending to pay attention anymore. I didn't want to start a fight. I just asked, "Is there something going on I should know about?" She didn't even glance up. "Like what?" "You've been really distant lately. Always on your phone. Out late." "I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just asking." She finally looked at me. No concern. No apology. Just a smirk. "You're replaceable," she said. "Never forget that." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. That was it. Cold. Final. Like she had been waiting for the right moment to say it. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just nodded and said, "Good reminder." That was the last time I played along. I'd overlooked a lot leading up to that night. Her dismissive tone. The flirtatious texts she swore were just inside jokes. The way she stopped saying, "I love you," unless I said it first. I thought we were just going through a rough patch. But the truth was, she had already decided she was above this relationship. I was just catching up to the reality she'd been living in for months. But something changed in me when she said those words. "You're replaceable." I didn't break. I didn't beg. I didn't even get sad. I got focused. That night, I lay in bed next to her, listening to her breathe while I stared at the ceiling. She fell asleep quickly, like someone who didn't think twice about the damage they caused. I, on the other hand, was making a list in my head, what I needed to separate, protect, and plan. She thought she still had control. She had no idea I was already preparing to leave. Not to punish her. Not to hurt her. But to show her what it really means to be replaced. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't looked me in the eyes and dropped a verbal grenade into the middle of our relationship. She was humming to herself in the kitchen, making coffee, scrolling through her phone like it was just another day. She slid a cup toward me. "You working late tonight?" "Probably," I said, taking the cup without making eye contact. That was the start of it. The quiet shift. I wasn't trying to win anymore. I wasn't trying to fix things. I was done playing the role of the loyal, forgiving fiancé who would do anything to keep the peace. At work, I opened a new checking account under my name only. Transferred a small amount from our joint savings. Nothing that would trigger suspicion. Just enough to start laying the foundation. I began gathering documents. Passport, birth certificate, social security card. The essentials. Quietly. No drama. No visible signs of change. I started coming home later. Told her work was crazy. She didn't question it. Probably assumed I was still sulking. Still processing. But I wasn't sulking. I was building distance. Intentionally. Strategically. I'd sit in the car for half an hour before coming inside, just to avoid conversation. When I did walk in, she'd be on the couch, half-dressed, scrolling TikTok or texting someone, never with any concern about who I was or what I'd been doing. I didn't ask. I didn't care. The power she thought she had was already slipping through her fingers. One evening, she asked if I wanted to go out to dinner. I paused. "Why?" She blinked. "Because we haven't in a while." I smiled politely. I thought I was replaceable. She laughed awkwardly. "You're not still upset about that?" "No. I'm just thinking about how seriously I should take your words." That silenced her. She tried changing the subject, but the energy had shifted. She knew it. I knew it. She started poking more often after that. Passive jabs. "You used to be more affectionate. You're always so quiet now. You never compliment me anymore." I just kept responding with a steady, neutral tone. "Sorry you feel that way. Just tired. Nothing to say." But the truth was, I had everything to say. Just not to her. I reconnected with an old friend, Ava, her best friend. We'd known each other for years. She had always been kind, even when her loyalty to my fiancé made her keep her distance. We ran into each other at a bookstore, and she asked if I was okay. I gave her a tired smile and said, "I will be." Ava looked at me for a moment, then said quietly, "You deserve to be with someone who doesn't treat you like an option." I didn't say anything, but that moment stayed with me. That night, I went home and slept on the couch. Not because we fought. Because I was done pretending that sharing a bed meant we were still a team. She noticed. But she didn't say a word. And that silence told me everything. It was a slow unraveling after that. Not a storm, just a steady, silent dismantling of what we used to be. I started spending more nights at work. Sometimes I'd just sit in the office long after everyone left, scrolling through apartment listings, thinking about a future without her. She still hadn't apologized. Not really. Just little deflections and half-laughs any time I brought it up. "You're seriously still on about that?" she'd say, like I was overreacting to a joke. But it wasn't a joke. It was a mask dropping. A truth slipping out. And I had no interest in putting that mask back on. I found a place. Quiet area. Nothing flashy. One bedroom, just enough space for peace. I scheduled a viewing, signed the lease, and kept everything off the radar. No shared email confirmations. No receipts lying around. I told her I had to travel for a work thing, an overnight training seminar. That gave me 2 days to move the essentials without her noticing. Back at the apartment, I started disappearing little things. A couple shirts here, my PS5 there. She didn't ask questions. She was too caught up in herself, still convinced that I was emotionally chained to her no matter what she said or did. But I was 2 steps ahead. Every move she made only pushed me further out. She tried flirting again, touching my arm during dinner, laughing a little too hard at her own stories. I gave her nothing in return. Just quiet nods. A distant smile. Then she changed tactics. I came home one evening and saw the table set. Candles lit. She was in a dress I hadn't seen her wear in a year. "I made pasta," she said. "Your favorite." It was a good effort. A couple months ago, I might have melted at the gesture. But now, I looked at the plate. Then at her. "You don't even know what my favorite is anymore." Her face fell. She looked down at the food like it had betrayed her. "I'm trying," she said softly. "You weren't trying when you said I was replaceable." She didn't answer. Later that night, she slid into bed beside me like everything was normal. I got up and moved to the couch without a word. That's when she started to panic. The next morning, I found her going through my laundry basket, checking receipts on the counter. Suddenly, she was interested in where I was going and who I was texting. She even asked if I had plans that weekend, something she hadn't cared about in months. "You're acting different," she said. I just sipped my coffee. Maybe I'm just finally acting like someone who knows his worth. She didn't know how to handle that, because the truth was finally sinking in. The man she thought would stay no matter what, he wasn't staying anymore. By the following week, her behavior had shifted from smug to unsettled. The air between us had changed, not charged with tension, but heavy with the absence of what used to be. She tried to play nice, acting like we were suddenly in a good place again, like the last few weeks hadn't happened. "Want to go for a walk after dinner?" she asked one evening. "I've got plans," I said. "With who?" "Just someone." That someone was myself. I walked to the park, sat on a bench, and stared at the skyline while breathing easier than I had in months. Peace felt foreign but good. When I got home, she was sitting on the couch with a blanket draped over her legs, scrolling her phone. She barely looked up, but I could tell she was annoyed. "You're seeing someone, aren't you?" she asked, her voice cold. "No." "Then why are you so distant?" "Because I started listening." "Listening to what?" "To the part where you told me I was replaceable." She didn't say anything after that. Just looked away and pretended her phone had something more interesting to say. The next day, I left the wedding dress invoice out on the kitchen counter. The one we were supposed to finalize soon. Only this time, I had written across the top in red marker, "Cancelled." She saw it. Her eyes lingered on it longer than she meant to. She didn't ask about it. She just left it sitting there, untouched. Then came the moment I'd planned for. I didn't come home one night. No fight. No warning. No goodbye. Just absence. She called. Once. Twice. Left a message. "Hey, are you okay? Call me." The next morning, I texted her. "I stayed at my new place." She replied instantly. "What new place? Are you serious?" I didn't respond. I could feel her unraveling. Later that day, she showed up at my new apartment. She knocked like she owned the place. I opened the door calmly. She looked past me and froze. There was Ava, standing in the kitchen, pouring tea. No, Ava and I weren't dating. We hadn't even kissed. But her presence there, calm, supportive, grounded, said everything. My fiancée's jaw dropped. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered. "I'm not," I replied. "You're with my best friend?" "I'm with someone who respects me, who listens, who never told me I was disposable." She turned to Ava. "You were supposed to be my friend." "I was," Ava said without blinking, "until I saw how you treated him." She looked back at me, stunned. "You're actually done?" I nodded. "You replaced my respect with games. So I replaced your presence with peace." She left without saying another word. No tears. No yelling. Just silence. Because even she knew there was nothing left to salvage. The silence after her exit wasn't empty. It was peaceful. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't bracing for the next argument, the next passive-aggressive remark, the next manipulation disguised as affection. I just existed quietly, and it felt like breathing after being underwater too long. She, on the other hand, spiraled. The calls picked up again. At first, casual. "Hey, can we talk?" Then guilt-laced. "I just want to explain myself." Then desperate. "I made a mistake. Please." I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because she wasn't reaching out for closure. She was trying to regain control. And control was a door I'd locked for good. Then came the social media parade. Her feed transformed overnight. Posed pictures with captions like, "Healing is messy but beautiful," and "Self-love is the best love." Suddenly, she was the face of empowerment and independence. But it was performative, and anyone paying attention could see it. The likes dropped. The comments dried up. The orbiters she thought she could fall back on? They weren't lining up to rescue her like she imagined. Turns out, when the illusion of a relationship fades, so do the spectators. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I started running again. Cooked my own meals. Went out with friends without worrying about justifying it. Ava and I kept things platonic, respectful. Two people who had both seen the damage up close and decided to move slowly, if at all. She checked in on me, we talked sometimes, but she never crossed a line. She didn't need to. One day, about 3 weeks later, I bumped into my ex-fiancée at a coffee shop downtown. She was standing in line, hair tied up, no makeup, hoodie half-zipped, looking nothing like the carefully curated version of herself she usually projected. She looked at me like she'd seen a ghost. I gave her a polite nod. "Hey." She blinked. "You look different." "Yeah," I said. "Peace looks good on me." She laughed nervously. "I've been meaning to call." "I know. I've just been processing everything. I hope you find clarity." She paused. "Do you ever think about what we had?" "I used to," I said. "Until I realized I was the only one treating it like it mattered." Her face shifted. Not sad, not angry, but something in between. The expression of someone who knew they'd lost something, not because it was taken, but because they didn't protect it. "I never thought you'd actually leave," she said. You didn't leave me much choice. We stood there for a few seconds in silence. Two people who had shared a future now reduced to a brief, uncomfortable exchange in a coffee line. You really don't want to try again? She asked. I looked her in the eyes. You told me I was replaceable. I just proved you right. I turned to leave. And this time, she didn't follow. Weeks passed. She didn't call anymore. Didn't text. No surprise visits. Just complete radio silence. But not the kind that signals peace, the kind that speaks defeat. Her pride had finally run out of fuel. Every now and then, I'd hear from someone in our old circle. A mutual friend, a former co-worker of hers, even Ava. Each update was similar. She's not doing great. She'd moved into a tiny apartment across town. Working 2 jobs. Renting furniture. Posting less and less. The carefully polished image of her life was crumbling, and there was no one left to convince. Then one day, I saw her again. She was walking out of my old building, the one we used to live in. Her makeup was smudged, hair in a messy bun, phone in her hand but not looking at it. She didn't even notice me until I spoke. Touring the building? She stopped in her tracks and turned, startled. Yeah, she said. I needed a new place. The studio on the first floor's open. I remember, I said. It was one of the cheaper ones. She flinched slightly. Still decent, though. Sure is, I replied with a smile. There was a pause. She looked at me for a long time, and I could see the question forming. You really never looked back? She asked quietly. I did, I said. For a moment. Right after you said I was replaceable. But then I realized I didn't want to be somewhere I had to fight to be valued. She bit her lip, looked down at her shoes. I said a lot of things I didn't mean. You meant them in the moment, I said. And honestly, that's worse. She nodded slowly. I miss you. I know. Another pause. I thought, maybe you'd miss me too. I missed who I thought you were. But that person doesn't exist anymore. That hit her harder than anything else I could have said. She looked up at me with glassy eyes but didn't let the tears fall. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was finally understanding the weight of what she'd thrown away. I'm not who I was, she said. Neither am I replied. She gave a weak smile. You look good. Happier. I am. She opened her mouth to say something more, a plea, an apology, something, but just then Rashid walked out of the building and gave me a nod. Game night still on? Yep. Friday. Rashid looked at her, then back at me, giving a respectful nod before walking off. Her eyes followed him. You're doing fine without me. I was always capable of it. You just made me prove it. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Not as her fiancé. Not as her backup plan. But as someone she used to have, who now stood out of reach. I started to walk away. Hey, she called out. I turned. I could really use a friend right now. I smiled kindly. Tony has a Tesla. Maybe he can drive you to find one. And with that, I walked away. Not angry, not bitter, just done. Because in the end, she was right about one thing. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is leave.